Hello, I'm Jakka-B and welcome back to my tutorial series. For this episode, I want to show you some really simple mix down tips and tricks to help you level up your mix downs and mix like a pro. I also want to introduce you to a brand new sample pack called Out of the Box Hard Dance Samples from myself and Macks Wolf. I'm going to be auditioning some of those sounds and I'm going to be coinciding that with some mix down tips to show you how you can literally start making music straight out of the box. Let's go. My first tip might seem like an obvious one, but actually it's not all of the time, but it's to use high quality samples. There are some pretty bad samples out there. However, if you're on Splice or you've got any modern sample packs, those kind of things, generally the quality of the samples is pretty good. Some old sample packs, I'm saying going back like maybe 20 plus years. Also, yeah, if you're sampling from vinyl or old MP3s, those kind of things, the quality may not be there and that you may struggle to get a really high quality mix down. However, I don't want to discourage you from sampling because sampling is part of having fun producing music. Although with that, sometimes you can maybe rip a sample from a track you like, an old vinyl or whatever, and look to layer it with something more modern out of a sample pack or a synth or something like that. So my first tip is using and finding high quality samples for your tracks. The second tip I have is around gain staging, which is essentially making sure that your mix overall is not too loud. A lot of dance tracks revolve around the kick drum, and so if you're placing your kick drum into your track, the best thing you can do is lower the volume of it. If you start with your kick, then you can build everything around it. If you don't, then place your kick in and you can always highlight all of your channels here and lower everything to fit around the kick drum. So I'm going to show you what I mean by that now. I'm going to throw a kick in from our out of the box sample pack. So at the moment, this kick drum is hitting around -1 dB, which although it's below 0 decibels, once you've added your bass sounds, any synths, percussions, drums on top of that, the track is going to be like way too loud. So the best thing you can do is lower your kick drum anywhere between kind of -6 and -10. It depends. Different producers like to start slightly quieter than others. Personally, I like -8, which is kind of in between the two numbers I just mentioned. I think that's a good starting point, and that allows you to create headroom in the mix. So when you place your drums, percussion, any synths on top of your kick drum, you should still be well below the 0 dB level. So if I play that now, that's now at -9 because it was already at -1, so -8, it's now at -9. So I think that's a really good starting point for a kick drum. So I like that kick drum. I'm going to show you a couple of others we have in the pack. Loads of these kicks, so they're all key labeled, and there's also some harder kicks as well. So a kick drum for every occasion. The next thing I'm going to do is I'm going to add some bass because I want to show you how you can create space in your mix. So I'm going to audition a few bass samples here and just pick one that I think really works with this kick. That's nice. I like that one. So my next tip is to create space in the mix. So at the moment, it's quite a long kick and the bass here is kind of on an off bass, slightly sidechained. You can see here, there is some bleed, so the kick carries on into the bass sound. That will create issues in the low end. So my advice when you have a kick and a bass is to always create space so that only one is playing at a time. So in this instance, it's kind of quite easy because we could just shorten the kick drum, the audio sample, and just fade it slightly there. And as you can see here, they're kind of roughly, now I've lowered the volume just a little bit to -9, which is also the volume of what the kick is actually hitting at. These now look pretty consistent on the spectrum here. However, there is something not quite right with these, and that is the key. So this is my third tip, and that is to have your kick ideally in key to the root note of your track. So if your track is in an F, really you need your kick in an F, or if your track is in a G, then you'd want your kick and root note of your bass in a G as well, ideally. So at the moment, the kick is in a G and the bass is in an F. So I need to make a decision which one of those I want to change. In this instance, I'm going to have a look at just adjusting the bass ever so slightly and bring that up 2 semitones to a G. So far, I've picked some high quality samples to use for the track. I've also gain staged, so I've made sure that the peak volume of the kick is at -9, and I've made sure that the bass sits around the same volume as the kick, which has created lots of headroom in the track. I've also created space in the mix by shortening the kick drum and making sure that it hits separately to the bass, so there is no overlap or bleed over. I've also made sure that the kick and the bass both hit in the same key by pitching the bass up 2 semitones to sit in a G. So the kick and the bass are both in a G. I'm gonna chuck some sounds on and see what works to build up on what I've got so far. So let's have a look at some music loops. So the out-of-the-box sample pack is packed full of some great song starters or music loops for you to throw straight into your tracks. I'm gonna have a look at the screeches now. Screech loops. I'm really liking that one. Let's see how this sounds. I haven't lowered the volume of this screech yet, so it's going to sound really loud. And just as it's playing, I'm going to lower the volume of it so it sits in the mix how I'd like it to. There we go. So as you can see, the kick is at -8, the bass is at -9, and the screech is sitting at -14.4. So it's sitting a little quieter than the others. However, in terms of the mix, it actually sounds about the right volume to kind of sit with everything else that's going on. And another way that you can create space in your mix is by using side chaining, which is something I'm going to show you now. I use this plugin here at Shaperbox a lot for my side chaining because it's super simple to use and also to route to your kick drums. I'm going to click here in Ableton. I'm going to route it to my kick drum. So I'm going to, from the drop down menu here, go to out of the box kick 3. That is now routed to my kick drum, audio, sidechain. And I'm now going to click this so it's 1/4 and create a sidechain. So with this sidechain now, it's ducking under the kick drum. So as the kick drum plays, it's fading out and in. I'm going to play it without and then with the sidechain. And you'll be able to hear how the lead starts to pump underneath the kick. Without and with. What that's effectively doing is allowing the attack of the kick to really poke through the mix, and it's giving you a much cleaner mix overall. I'm going to add 1 or 2 other little sounds in just to spice this up slightly. Let's have a look at some acid sounds. Put this acid loop here, so this just comes in at the end of the second bar, and again here as well. Okay, snap these to 170 BPM. Let's hear what they sound like. Finally, I'm going to add some percussive loops into this just to give it some pace. The out-of-the-box sample pack contains lots of loops between 160 and 170 BPM that you can throw straight into your project. I think that's a great one. I'm going to duplicate that and turn it down. That is a lot quieter at minus 17.5, so it's sitting even lower in the mix than the screech sound. But again, it does sound like it's at the right volume now. And what that top loop does is it gives that whole drop we've created just a little bit of pace. The last thing I want to do is show you one other tip, which is really important for getting a pro clean mix down. And again, it's something which may sound quite simple, but it's quite often overlooked, and I want to show you what that is. That is to add a low cut onto the sounds that don't need low end. Let me explain what I mean by that. So I'm going to group these tracks up here. So we have the kick and the bass, and then I've grouped all the other sounds up into one group. If I solo these sounds here, you can see there is some low end information. Most of it's coming from the acid stab. That is unnecessary. It's not needed, and what it'll end up doing is just getting in the way of the kick and the bass, which will affect the low end and also the volume you'll be able to get out of your mix and master at the end. So I'm going to put a low cut on this group here. So I'm going to take out all of the unnecessary low end from the loop, the acid stab, and the screech. If I use this headphone here in Pro Q4, you'll be able to hear the frequencies that I've cut out of this mix down. So everything below here is now gone. That should now sit a little tighter in the mix. Let's hear how that sounds with everything playing all at once. So as you can hear, by throwing in some really clean samples, using a little bit of sidechain, creating space, and gain staging, I've been able to, without any other processing, create a drop that sounds ready to go. Just before I leave you there, I want to show you a couple of other sounds we've got in the pack, because there's some great song starters here, which include the MIDI, like and that includes all of the MIDI broken down as well. Got several other song starters. And as an absolute bonus, Macks Wolf and I have thrown in the samples from quite a few of our collabs we've done over the years, including I Don't Want to Fall, Islands in the Sky, The Oasis, and Unknown Secrets. And finally, and I'm going to do a whole nother tutorial on this, is bonus UK classic happy hardcore content, which includes things like pianos, stabs, hoovers. My aim with this tutorial was to show you, using some really simple mixdown tricks and tips, plus some high quality samples, how you can start an idea and literally create something that's ready to go and throw into your tracks. And I've also left a link in the description for this out of the box sample pack as well. I'd love it if you guys have got any questions. Feel free to drop some comments below, and I'll hopefully see you again. I'll be back very soon with another tutorial.